Grandpa's tales, they never fail. A treasure map in every detail. Oh, Grandpa's tales, wild and free. A podcast full of history.
We want to hear about your siblings today.
Well, I was very fortunate to be I was the youngest of five. So I've had a lot of people to look up to. I look up to my three brothers, and my sister. So, those are really, and their stories behind their life is very interesting. So,
Let's go over who are your siblings?
well, my oldest brother was Haggard, and actually his name, my father's middle name was Hagar, Hagaar. But somewhere along the line, in the Bible, it was sort of Hagar was reference to a woman, so they put a D after his name, so Hagar.
Yeah.
And so and you can probably go online and go on, and you can YouTube.
Is that how your parents pronounced his name? Was Haggard?
Yeah, well, John Hagar. They call him, my father called him Hagar.
Interesting. That's funny. That's interesting.
And so, and of course, so he that was the influence, but we of course started off in Chicago, or that's where we first were. And I just, it's amazing what my mother and father was able to do with so little. And
yeah.
So when we moved to Berwyn, and my Haggard, during this period of time, this was after World War II, of course, he had joined the Army Air Force Reserves. So when the Korean War broke out, he was a reservist. They called him in. So he wound up being in Japan, and actually played ball, I guess, for the U.S. Baseball, and then he was the chaplain's assistant. And the reason he was a chaplain's assistant, he knew everyone's name. He's very good at names and remembering. So he became the chaplain's assistant, and that's where he served 2 years, I guess, and flew one time to Korea with the chaplain, and for a short stint, maybe a day, something like that. And then from there, Gordon, everyone who, of course, went into service in those days. They were all, I was drafted, and but Gordon was drafted, and he wound up going to Niagara Falls he hated it. He hated service, and servicing, because he was on a Nike site, blah blah blah. And then of course he did that, and then Wally, he went to Europe after basic training, and then he went to Europe in Germany and was he tried out for the basketball team and wound up becoming basketball. So he didn't have to go and serve. He lived in a gymnasium barracks for 2 years or 16 months, and with his time there. And he worked also on the baseball and football, basically as a support type thing. And so he was interesting, because we talked about it. He doesn't remember all this stuff, so I helped him remember. And help remember what he said. He said that he was there, and he was supposed to qualify to shooting every year. Everyone's supposed to have a gun, I guess, in Germany. And the captain said, asked him if he qualified, and he said, "No, I haven't. I don't have a gun." Oh, he says, "Go." He got upset. He says, "Well, go over into the armory and get a gun, a rifle, and they give it to him in an oilcloth, And when he left, that's the way he gave it back to him. He never fired the gun. So he was, so he did a lot of great things. And so, you look back at all him as far as Wally. And Wally was, he came out of the service and he went down to East Texas. He got a scholarship down there in Texas to play basketball. And he played basketball for 2 years down there. After he played 2 years at junior college and played 2 years down there. I think it was 2 or 3 years anyway. So he was, in fact, if you look back at Eric had gone back and looked at his records, and he was out at that school, and of course, and he went back down with Higgard and went down there when they had their 50th anniversary. Whatnot. He was rated ranked as a top, basketball player in their history.
Who?
So, Uncle Wally.
Crazy.
Yeah.
And so, so he was, but Uncle Wally, Wally was really involved in sports. So he wound up becoming a coach at
Was he the best athlete out of your brothers?
outside of me.
Outside of you, of course, yes.
Yeah, he was. I was the best golfer. Okay.
Okay.
I'll give you that credit. I mean, and I have won tournaments before and all that stuff. So I won't brag on myself. I'm talking about my brothers. They played golf. We all grew up. I grew up caddying. In the days, they didn't have electric golf carts or gas carts. So the members of this country club, Riverside Country Club, they needed somebody to carry the bags. So we carried bags, and we carried like. I remember I used to start off with 14 carrying a single bag. And then I think the next year I started doing doubles, 2 bags. You had 2 golfers and you go from one side of the green, one side of the fairway to the other side of the fairway and give the clubs to them. And then the members would ask you, what club do I use? And so you'd help them with that. So that was kind of thing that I did a lot of. And so I did, and Gordon did, and Wally did, and I think Hager even worked on the ground crew at one time. So they all got involved and it wasn't that far. You could almost bike a bicycle to that golf course, but it's a couple of cities over. And and then so that we all did that. And Wally, when he got out, and then he got involved in cross country skiing. And that was where he did a lot of that. And then when he married Hannah came from Czechoslovakia, and she was a downhill skier. So he had that connection. And so he did a lot of skiing, cross country skiing, and he'd go to all these Olympics. So he was in the Olympics as a cross country skiing. As a what do you call it? An official, and with the U.S. team, and the event. So he did that, and he did that in Salt Lake, I know, and he was there in New York, and when they had the Olympics there, I can't think of the name of that place, when they had the famous. When the U.S. hockey team beat the Russians, and
in the 80s.
Yeah, and so he was there then, and official. And then he met the king and queen of Sweden.
That's crazy.
At that, and so he was kind of excited about that and got a chance to talk to that. So. From there, then he went on. Then he did that, and then he does. And actually, he wound up gotten involved in the association, and and then he went to the Winter Olympics in Norway, and at that time, and then he went after that. He went down to Sweden. Compete in Mora, Minnesota, Mora, Wisconsin. Excuse me, Mora, Sweden, and there's a more United States too, up here. And so he did a 50-kilometer race or whatever, or trial. So he went with a whole group naturally. And I said to him, I said, good God, I says, 50 kilometers, I said, you stop along the way? They said, yeah, they had beer stops along the way. So he probably had one or two at each stop. And so he loved his beer. So anyway, he wound up doing that, and he also went to Salt Lake. And when he went to Salt Lake, was an official. He did official, and afterward they did the Special Olympics, I think was it, or the handicap Olympics afterward. So he did both in Salt Lake City and up in the mountains there, and so he's done a lot of stuff like that. So, and then Gordon, he wound up being a geologist, and he had to influence me. I mean, all my brothers influenced me. So
Yeah.
when I went to high school, when I went to college, I started taking up geology because of Gordon, and then I switched on over to education, and because Wally was a coach. Wally was there actually. He would get his master's degree at Northern Illinois, and so then so that was where Gordon, Wally rather, he influenced me that way. So so I did my student teaching, and then Eggert, who was my oldest, and of course was well established with State Farm. I had that dealership. I mean, I had a State Farm office, and he said to me, he says, "Forget about education, get into sales." So that's where he influenced me, and that's the first thing I did out of college. Got into pharmaceutical sales. And that's where that influence was. But and when I look at my oldest sister, Harriet, who's going to be 95 now, and she was a very much, living on the farm, working on the farm, very much, living on the farm, working on the farm. I see how hard she worked and how all things she did, and I admired it, and and I grew up with her. She was my older sister, and my only sister, and she would take me everywhere, as a kid. And so I got a lot of pictures of that era, and when I was a teenager. So
How did she get into farming?
she married, the next door neighbor, or across the street neighbor, was Court, and she was related to the O'Neills in Canada. So they went up there, and there was where she met Ray, and then a couple of years later they married her. I don't know the timetable, but it was really, and it was so great, and of course they had a place in Tillsonburg, Canada, and then they also had a place in the wintertime down in St. Petersburg. So we used to go there. Dottie and I would go there every year and visit them and stay with them for several days and run around that part of the world, and so yeah, it was so many great things. And of course she has great children and great she has great grandchildren. So, and so really great kids, and we're fortunate in that way, and I have a lot of nieces and nephews that I look up to, and I think how well they've done. So, but there's so many stories in between these stories, it's sort of there's a lot of gaps, and so yeah, there's many things I remember, of course, but they were a big part of my life, and I was blessed with being able to have those older, siblings. And I so
Can you people don't know the rank, like the age, the how much older, like can you go through all five of your siblings and how much older, they are?
Haggard was about 9 years older than I was,
Mhm.
so you can see where
But he wasn't the oldest, was he? Or was he?
he was the
Oh,
oldest.
he was the oldest.
Haggard's
Yeah.
Then Harry was next, and she was 7 or 8 years. And Gordon was like 5 years, 4 years. No, about 5 years, 4.5, 5 years, and then Wally was 3.5 years older than I was.
9 years is a huge difference. What was that
Yeah,
like?
well,
Were they like second parent? Did they parent you a little bit in a way? Did they?
Well, not really. Wally advised me. Haggard was really great from the standpoint that he did so much for me and helped me. In fact, at one period of time, I think he encouraged me to go down and get a broker's license, insurance broker's license. So I went down to Springfield, Illinois, and took the broker's test, became a broker. So there was a lot of stuff State Farm could not write, but I hooked up with in W.J. Foster in Chicago, who was a big insurance company that did all these different uh, they did all the different types of insurance, that he couldn't write and I could write. So I would be at school, and all of a sudden I'd get a check in the mail. He'd write the insurance. He wrote the insurance. He had the customers. He wrote the insurance, and then he gave me the commission. So that was, and he never took anything. He just did what he did. So, and it was nice to get like a $400 check in the mail,
Yeah.
So, but going to school in that era that I went, college especially, I made enough money in the summertime to be able to go to college in Northern Illinois, so that was.
And how many of your siblings went to Northern Illinois before you? Was it just
Wally went?
this one?
Gordon went down to Rawling, Missouri at I think it was, I can't remember what the school.
He went to Missouri?
It was something school of mines, Missouri School of Mines, I think.
Maybe.
And Hayward went to Augustana College, and Wally went to Texas. Down in Texas, he finished up.
And Harriet didn't go to school?
No, she did not. But so she worked for Western Electric. A lot of people worked at Western Electric, in that era. So
I'm curious to know, like, when your brothers moved, how did your brothers end up in Chicago? I mean, like, we all know, like Michigan and Tilsonburg and
and
Wisconsin.
Well, Wally lived in Chicago.
Yeah.
Not Chicago, the suburbs, Berwyn, Illinois.
Yeah.
Actually, the same high school that he went to. He became a coach over there,
That's super cool.
basketball,
Mhm.
other sports.
Mhm.
And so Gordon went to Rockford, Illinois, and got a school. Went to work for. Can't think of the name of the company now. That's where Danny was born. Kathy was born, and
In Rockford, or?
Rockford, Illinois, and that's about 90 miles from Chicago. So we used to go there a lot, Dottie and I, and actually enjoyed going there. And so, went to that was bring up some memories. Yeah, went there a lot. And
But then he went to Michigan, correct? Or he?
then he went and wound up doing consulting work, and he went and worked for another company. He was big on sort of sand. It was for glass making. And what they would do is, as my recollection is that they looked for sand outcrops. They didn't have a lot of iron in it because of glass making. You didn't want to have that a lot of. I guess that going over that real quickly, but that's what he did, and he worked for that company up there, and so in Rockford, Illinois, and so yeah, that's how he got there. So Haggard wound up having a State Farm insurance. Not only not he didn't work for State Farm. Well, he worked for State Farm, but he actually had, you know, that was his office, not the company's office. Now today they don't have any company offices, so it was rare and at that era. But he was very successful, and so in talking to Chicago, he was very good at and Polish names and people. He had a great sense of that, being able to communicate with these people, and so Chicago.
Because he had a Polish name, or
No, a lot of Polish people.
oh,
And Chicago was probably there were more people, Polish people there than there were in Warsaw. I mean, it was a big melting pot.
yeah,
Big melting pot of life. The Swedes, the Swedes, had there's an area that the Swedes hung out in, and the Italians, in certain sections, and the Greeks probably in another section.
yeah.
So that's where they all congregated. So, and I did business when I did business in Chicago, or the people I did business in Chicago, a lot of them were Greek and Italian, and so it in the business. So yeah, Chicago's different. Chicago's great from the standpoint that you have a complexion there. So
A good melting pot. I'm kind of curious about like what memories you have of your siblings from your childhood.
Yeah, I would say some of your favorite stories with them, or even like funny ones.
Yeah, I the ones I have with my sister, we would go back, take the Ridgeland Avenue bus and go up to North Avenue and catch a trolley to the beach when I was a kid, and with
Like a little streetcar, like a little
streetcars, yeah.
yeah.
And that was always an experience, as I remember. And then see with Gordon, we did a lot of stuff together from a standpoint. We got into what they call tuck pointing. A company across the street from us, the court people, and I worked for them and learned tuck pointing. Did tuck pointing. I was a laborer and I did tuck pointing. This was on a summertime or whatever. And Gordon did the same thing too. So he was good at that and very good. And I wound up getting jobs, neighbor jobs and houses. And then got more and more. And so Gordon was integral part of that connection, it wasn't, and then he wound up doing my folks home, and after I moved on. So he was, yeah. And Haggard, I can remember working for him when he had the office and I was young. I'd go around and put on cars, I'd put coupons, or not coupons, but, State Farm things so that they, with his name on it. So I did that too. Wally, remember him? Hard not to remember a lot of things with him because he was involved in so many things, and of course I was involved with him, or was part of it, and and he had a great reputation, and so he yeah, playing tennis with him, and not when I was so young, but I was older. And I could remember when we lived here. I told you about Mora, Minnesota, Mora, Sweden. He went and competed in a race in Mora, Minnesota, and he came here. It was about a 30-kilometer race. So he came here, and I took him up there. I think it's a couple hours north of here. And so we went up there in a freezing cold, below zero. God, was it cold. And so, I'm not going to stand around. So when they all took off and at the time, so then I went to the casino and had breakfast and hung out there for a while. And at one of those casinos up north. And then I went at the end of the race. Went, all these people are coming. Guys are coming in with beards frozen, and they're just sweating. It's freezing on them. And the first thing Wally says, "You were ready to come to get out of there." And he says, "No, let's go get a beer." That's one of the first things he said. So we went and he got a beer. We had a beer, and he talked to a lot of people. He just wanted to talk to other people too about the race, about it's not unnecessary a race. It's not a race. It's a race within yourself to try and do as much as you can.
Yeah, personal best.
And he improved so speed and whatnot. And he had he had all kinds of different skis and stuff like that. So, some of that would be for the ice, if it's icy or something whatnot. So I think he still probably got all those in his house. So, yeah, Gordon, we did a lot of stuff with him down in Florida on vacation. He would be down there for about a month or so, and he and Loretta and we would go down and stay with them, and because they all had rented out homes, and so that was a great time. A lot of great times. Went to Disney World many times, and of course. And that was, Gordon, of course, I'll take their kids there, most of them where they were in Orlando. That's where they would go down to. So, so there was really a lot of times, a lot of times down there that, that you remember, and the places you went to and whatnot. So just, did a lot of things with Gordon down there. We visited various parks and whatnot. And, Gordon was a geologist. He had a great collection of rocks and minerals and stuff like that. And in fact, I think I have a geode from him, or somewhere along the line. There's a geode. I don't know if it's here. No, it's not here. But there's a geode that I have that he gave me, and then he and Danny. And Danny, his son, did a lot of stories there. So about those adventures and his searching around. Gordon was an adventuresome guy. So very fortunate. Go ahead.
What can you? What was it like growing up with all your siblings in a small house?
Well, it's funny. It's not. You never think about it as being a small house, but it was. But we had. In fact, Wally and I slept together. So very fortunate. Go ahead.
What can you? What was it like growing up with all your siblings in a small house?
Well, it's funny. It's not. You never think about it as being a small house, but it was. But we had, in fact, Wally and I slept in the same bed together when we were small. When I was small, downstairs and upstairs there were two beds up there that Gordon and Haggard slept in, and Harry slept in the bedroom next to us, and then my mother and father on the same floor. So, it was not not a lot of room, small closets. I mean, it wasn't. And of course we had a nice, in the basement, a lot of things. We had the ping pong table and the shower down there and stuff like that. So, 3301 South Harvey Avenue, Berwyn, Illinois. Telephone number GU4 2627. That was our telephone number.
All right.
And so I remember that I'm maybe 60 or 70 years ago, 80 years ago. So yeah. That was, and I can remember even Donnie's telephone number when she in Berwyn. She was GU47315. So, and I was about growing up. I mean, not growing up, but when I, those early days, I would go over and could walk to her house, maybe a mile and a half, a little over a mile, I think, to her house, walking on the street. So did a lot of pedaling on bicycles, did a lot of early years going over to Riverside, going over and Wally did too, and we, all that type of thing. So that was really, it was if well, I know you don't have you don't have a lot of money. Didn't really like that, during World War II. We had my father built into the garage a chicken coop where he had chickens. At first, we started off with chicks, and then they became chickens, and then they got built up so we could get eggs during World War II. In the back lot of the house, on the other lot, we grew a victory garden. We had all of vegetables and stuff like that. Because at that time there was you couldn't go out and get a steak or a hamburger or whatever. Like you had a quota, so you had a coupon that you could only have a certain amount of food each month or whatever. I guess, and but we had chicken and we had and eggs and whatnot, and so we really that was it. We had a cherry tree in the backyard, not a sweet cherry tree, a sour tree. So, but we could make pies out with a little bit of sugar put in, and then there was a pear tree too. I'm sure they're long gone, but my dad was really good in growing tomatoes and stuff like that in the backyard. So that was a big part of it. Even Uncle Wally he was a big tomato grower. He was. So homegrown tomatoes are just tremendous.
The gardening didn't rub off on you at all, or
Well, yeah, I had a garden in the backyard here.
really?
Yeah, we had a garden, and I think we grew some tomatoes, but we also grew. I have to ask Grandma what we grew. Some corn or whatever. It wasn't the right stuff or the right place. We don't have a very good soil here. We're just very sandy, and but with fertilizer and stuff like that. So that was an era. I forgot about that. That was early on when we moved here, and I think I had some strawberry plants or blueberry or raspberries or something. And
Do you have any other memories of your childhood with your siblings, or any like stories that?
well, I can remember the story with Wally. Okay, Wally was infamous for getting into problems, doing things, and he and another guy were I was upstairs and I was in the basement. They were chopping up pumpkins after Halloween, and the neighbor kid and they were arguing whose turn it was, and Wally grabbed the pumpkin, and the guy chopped his finger, and the finger was. He came running out to the street in pain, and whatnot. And it just sort of like, oh my God, fortunate that it didn't go through the nerve, But so it was still hanging there. So that's that kind of thing. When we had BB guns, we'd be in the basement.
You had a bow and arrow, right?
Yeah, I was just about to say, wasn't there a great story with a bow and arrow?
Yeah, well, Wally and I. There's another story. Wally. Well, we started somewhere along the line this crazy game. Hager climbed up a tree. I was down in the prairie. I was a little kid. Young. I don't know how old I was. And they said, we're going to see how close who could shoot the arrow. He just got this bow and arrow at Christmas time, and he could shoot it up. And I was in the prairie, tall grass, whatnot, and boom! I looked up and hit me right in the bone below the eye. I was lucky he didn't hit it. Of course, I went out screaming, blood coming out. And Wally took off running, as he did many a time, worried about Grandpa and his dad. And that was the last that we saw at a furnace. We used to have a furnace, and he put, we had coal in the furnace in those days. We had a coal shipment, and my mother, I can remember her shoveling the coal into the coal bin, and just unbelievable that I think how, and then of course later on the gas came in, but that was an era. And then Wally, let's see, okay, he's almost chopped off his finger. Now he was in the basement of another friend. In the basement, they were throwing firecrackers out the window of the basement to a pond that was next to their house. And so he, cherry bombs were powerful. I mean, they were
Mhm.
out to get all kinds of firecrackers, but that was one of the Well, anyway, he was going to throw it out cherry bomb on and lit it, and he thought, well, it's not lit, and he held it down to his side, and it blew up, and it just shredded his hands. So his hands were shredded, and so he, of course, went to the emergency room. I remember at that time. So uh, he was, I mean, you know, he was a daredevil. Okay, so if you tell him, well, walk across the bridge, and or walk across, he would do it. So, but he and also, but and he was very competitive, and he made himself into a great basketball player. I mean, it's not like he went out and he worked out and he did a lot of working out and going to the playgrounds and whatnot. And as all of them did. So Wally and Gordon played together when I was in high school. Wally and Gordon played together. I guess I was in high school. Yeah, they played together for Wally was a year and a half difference, and so Gordon was mid-year. So they played together for a while, a couple of years, and boy, I tell you, they were just tremendous basketball players. When you look at the box scores of that, there is I have all these box scores of their games, and you could see where Gordon, Wally was maybe, and these are the days of two-hand set and one-hand set, and Gordon was a great hook. He could shoot hook shot, and he was fantastic, and jump hook, and very strong. Gordon was very strong, and you didn't want to get an elbow from him, but it was. And then, but you look at the box scores. Wally would score 25, and Gordon would score 25, or they were the two top scorers of the team, and so.
And I know from personal experience that a Wally elbow is not a.
Oh no, I'm with you on that one. I know that one too.
I think he was here for the 50th anniversary.
Yes.
Basketball out there in the front, and he was got the elbows out. And
he had that sky hook too.
Yeah,
that hook shot was hard to defend.
Gordon was the one that could really play it. It was really, fun to be able to go and see them play, and it was really. And then, of course, Wally went. As I say, Gordon didn't get a chance to go to play in the service. I think he wanted to, and I think that frustrated him. That's why he wasn't happy, because he wanted to try out for military, special service, blah blah blah. But he didn't get a chance, and so I was the only one that played baseball. I mean, as far as we used to play a lot of softball and stuff like that. So Wally and Gordon, they all grew up with. We had like what they called church league at that time. We used to play a lot of softball and stuff like that. So Wally and Gordon, they all grew up with. We had like what they called church league at that time. Mm-hmm. So we the churches had their basketball teams and baseball games, softball, and of course the softball is different than they play 16-inch, which is a larger ball, and played completely different and with no gloves, and so that was I can a lot of good memories on that, and so I got to go ahead.
You and your brothers all went to the same junior college, right?
Yeah, Morton Junior College. It's now Morton College, but at that time it was a 2-year school. Okay. And there were junior colleges, and we competed against a lot of junior colleges. And I played 1 year of basketball, and then I blew my knee out that summer, so that ended my career. So I was playing competitive basketball. So, but Wally and Gordon both played, and you're good. Hager played too, I think. Even I think in the service area. But when he came back, he went to Augustana College in Illinois, not Rockford, now. And so, it's a lot of competitive, very competitive each other. I mean, don't get me wrong. Wally and Gordon probably mixed it up, pretty good, in competing, on a basketball court or ground. I mean, Gordon, just a very strong. He was very excellent basketball player too. So couldn't dribble worth a damn, but Wally and I could dribble. I was, of course, Wally and I both were able to spin the ball on my finger and do tricks with the basketball. And he taught me what he was doing. Spin the ball on my finger and punch it up in the air with my fist and hit it with my elbow and catch it back on my finger. I could have probably been a vaudeville show, but so. But yeah, that was a different. There's always memories that come back, that when you think back in time, and I worked, as I say, I worked mostly construction, and that was enough money to go to college. Today, it's impossible. You couldn't make enough money. But then school wasn't that expensive, Even when I think when Jennifer, Jane went to school and Eric went to school, it probably cost me $5,000 a year, and a little bit more for Jane because she went to a private school up to a Lutheran school. So, yeah, that was another time, another era. God, I remember that. So, but I got a lot of trophies up here that verify my history. And there's some of them that are involved.
I'm seeing. Sorry, Grandpa, to interrupt.
Yeah.
I'm seeing the Moorhead yearbooks here. What year did you go into the?
I didn't go to Moorhead.
I mean, Morton
College, 55.
What year was it? Did you ever end up at the same time as your brothers, or?
No. They're 3 years older. So I graduated in 55. Yeah, 1955. You can pull that annual on. You can pull pictures up. Well, you can pull pictures out of me out of there, but you can also pull pictures out of 54. 54 has more, and there's a lot of signatures and people that wrote in there.
Oh, this is Grandma's.
No, Grandma doesn't have. Oh, Grandma's. Maybe that's hers.
This is Grandma's. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, she has.
Holy, she got a lot of signatures here, Grandpa.
Yeah, she had a lot. But I was the shortest kid growing up, always the shortest.
Were your siblings short too, or no?
I think, yeah, Wally, and I think it grew later. I think not as late as I did, but I was pretty young for my age. So naturally, as I say, I should have been in Grandma's class. And fortunately, I'm a November kid, but the cutoff now would have been in September sometime, or first of September, and I should have been in her class. And if I would have been, instead of, I was 5'4" as a junior, 5'9" as a senior, and then 6'1" as a freshman, 6'2", and I should have actually been 6'1", 6'2", and I would have never dated Dottie, even though she was in the same class. I would have been dating all the cheerleaders, so my girlfriend. But anyway, we have a few laughs about that. So, but that's boy, as I say, there's a lot of things that come across every time. I think, ooh, I forgot about that. So, but yeah, trying to think of what else. But that's a summary of whatever.
Yeah.
So if you want to print that and say,
I think we're good.
okay, thank you, Chad.
Yeah, you're welcome.